Fallout New Vegas is a game with some of the best written and most appealing companions in any video game I've ever played. A few of my favorites include Arcade Gannon, Veronica, Boone, and Robot. But today we aren't discussing those companions. Instead, we're going for a part 2 on what can easily be considered the worst companion in any Fallout game, excluding maybe Pariah Dog for those old schoolers out there. I'm going to try and beat all the Fallout New Vegas DLC with this complete failure of a companion following me and blowing me up ad infinitum. Beforehand though, it's time for a mandatory anime recap. If you don't know, this is actually a sequel to this video where I beat the base game with this complete abomination. If you haven't watched it, you might be a tad confused on what a Shadow Davey is. In a nutshell, I wanted to beat a run with a companion that only wielded the Fat Man and only the Fat Man. You know, just launching me into fucking orbit over and over again and having comic antics ensue. The problem is, every companion, God forbid, practices self-preservation, including various DLC companions like Dean Domino. For this, I had to code in an entirely new companion who couldn't fall back to another safer weapon, and instead, always uses the Fat Man. Hence, Shadow Davey was born and I was unborn. A lot. It brought a level of anxiety to the game that was oddly high because every second could be your last when you have a thermonuclear abusing transgender skeleton fucking you to death at every corner or mild inconvenience. With that recap out of the way, here's another mandatory thing I have to add in the video. During that video, I asked if people wanted to download this abomination, and the answer was a resounding yes. I claimed it wouldn't take too long to code in, just a few voice lines and make it available for download. But soon enough that turned out to be a fucking lie, as I had a few quality of life improvements I wanted to add in, but me having the coding prowess of a crippled possum couldn't get anywhere close to doing that. But now after 4 or 5 months and much needed assistance, it's finally available for download. I'll put a link in the description if you are interested in seeing how or where to download this, as well as a rundown on things added and all that mumbo jumbo. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the actual challenge now. The challenge starts as all good Fallout challenge runs start, the game fucking dying. I intended to start this challenge as my original character that we played before starting the Battle of Hoover Dam, Davey Dumbface. However, for one reason or another, the entire game started doing this thing where every character developed crippling tremors throughout their entire body, and that crashed the game extremely regularly. So I had to do a complete uninstall and reinstall. Of course, this meant no Davey Dumbface, so welcome to the world, Davey Deadface. Although Dumbface had a lot of great loot, caps and was level 17, Deadface is only level 15, has basically no caps and only starts the game with mercenary pack items. In terms of special skills, I heavily favored endurance and luck at the cost of my charisma and a small amount of strength. My skills mostly went into medicine because I'm going to be taking a metric fuck ton of damage during this challenge, guns because guns, and a pretty steady split between a few other skills I might dump more points into at a later date. For traits, we got Logan's Loophole since we won't be going over level 30 in this challenge, and Skilled for obvious reasons. For perks, we got Intense Training twice, Educated, Rad Resistance, Grunt, Fast Metabolism, and Chemist. Intense Training was for lack of a better perk in 2 choices, Educated was taken as early as possible for obvious reasons, Grunt helped with our main weapons in this playthrough, and the last 3 all just helped with survivability in one way or another. After level ups, we had to get to Shadow Davey, who is now located firmly in the abandoned shack outside of Goodsprings. I did fuck up here and accidentally tell me sounded like Mitten Squad before 25 Death Claws fucked me to death, but fortunately there was a convenient autosave just before that, and we could go to our first DLC. For our DLC order, we're going to go Honest Hearts, Dead Money, Old World Blues, and then Lonesome Road. Anyways, arriving at Zion, we got ambushed. Well, these losers got ambushed. I sat here AFK and did absolutely nothing because I sat through this exact cutscene 4 times already, and I didn't know if I could skip it, so I just went ahead and got some fruit and yogurt cereal. Once I came back, I looted all these losers and got back all of my gear that I gave Shadow Davey to bypass the weight limit. Actually, speaking of which, in case you're wondering, Shadow Davey, despite being, by every definition, a companion, is not actually a companion. How? I don't know, but any companion restrictions in the game are automatically bypassed. Meaning this dumbohead right here going teehee X3 you have to be by yourself and have a weight limit of 75 can go fuck himself because I have a mechanical skeleton juggernaut of thermonuclear death that can carry 200 pounds without breaking a sweat, and I can just bring him wherever I want. Neato. Anyways, the white leg sure did try to kill Shadow Davey, but little did they know the threat they were up against, and after getting all the loot I pushed forward into the valley, and while Shadow Davey was committing war crimes on the native people, Follows Chalk just casually contacts me through the 7 nuclear warheads dropped right on top of him to tell me how lucky I am I survived. I won't lie, after I saw this I lost my shit for about a minute and a half. But despite being crippled the literal second we leave dialogue, he's more than happy to take me to Joshua Graham to further the storyline. What a fucking champion. Anyways, Follows Chalk took us on an adventure through a river, which was pretty neat. It's always pretty cool seeing an environment other than nuclear wasteland in a Fallout game, but I did find a cave that had enough traps inside to fill up an anime Discord server, so cool. Really most of the loot I was hoping to find was ammo and healing items. I don't really need godly DPS, but at the same time I do need something that can pump out enough damage that if an enemy runs at me, I can kill them before the walking nuclear apocalypse doesn't blast me into the stratosphere a la Team Rocket. After delving into Trap Cave and getting all the cool stuff out of it, it's time for Joshua Graham, and he definitely does have an animation with pistols. I did skip over all of it though because I got to this point already in a past life, and reading is for chumps. He gave me 3 quests of varying objectives, but there is a problem here. The wildlife. Do you know what the similarity between bighorners, scorpions, doggies, geckos, mantises, cazadors, ants, and yaoguai are? Well, there's probably a few actually, but the one that's important to note is that they're all melee. They want to run at you and hit you with their body. That does not bode well for us. So whenever possible, picking off enemies at range is going to be our preferred way to deal with enemies. It's not like we're going for a melee build here, but simultaneously even with mid-range weapons, if I don't kill off the enemy immediately, I probably die. Anyways, after quite a few deaths, we finally managed to get to our first location, the Zion Fishing Lodge. Now here's the main problem with this DLC. Take all of those animals that enjoy invading our personal space more than a Reddit moderator, then get rid of the great outdoors and replace it with a small fucking building. That really doesn't help us by any means. So with this and our current build, we really only have 2 options. Either run in, shoot a few times, and run out before Shadow Davey turns the Geneva Convention into the Geneva Suggestion, or face tank the damage and hope for the best. Now here's where I got mildly annoyed. Looking at the minimap, there is evidently another enemy in this building. But just like a gay teenager in a heavily Catholic family, they didn't really want to come out. So I spent like 2 minutes trying to lure it out with grenades, running back and forth as loudly as possible, and overall being a fucking idiot. After none of these works, I figured, okay, maybe the enemy is just like having the time of his life in the bathroom or whatever. So I moved forward to pick up some loot. I don't really know what I expected. Fuck, I didn't even want a stim pack reserve anyways. Anyways, I got the key, got what I came here for, and entered the general goods store, which unlike the fishing lodge actually had a few advantages. Firstly is the fact that enemies are a lot closer to the entrance, meaning we can use our shotgun for more damage rather than a pistol or a rifle. Secondly is the fact that there's only one entrance, meaning enemies only have one direction to run at us in, and thirdly is the fact that there are enemies being segmented. And although that was mildly anxiety-inducing at first, Shadow Davey has the mind-altering AI technology of being able to open doors, so luckily that wasn't too difficult. What was a bit more difficult was spending way more time than I'd like to admit finding the 5 lunchboxes because who the fuck hides a key in a cash register? Actually, probably a lot of people, it kinda makes sense, but I wanna fucking be angry, okay? Shut up. Oh wait, I forgot to mention the bus. That was the first thing I did, but I got too busy ranting about wildlife that I entirely forgot to mention it. Yeah, we actually did that first, and although I didn't have the necessary repair skill to fix the compass, we did have the workbench available at Trap Cave to utilize. Was there one closer to where I was supposed to go? More than likely. Although, like I said at the beginning, this is my first playthrough. Anyways, here's Daniel. Being the most Daniel I've ever laid my eyes upon. After talking to him and giving him his stuff, Joshua Graham charged in at 500 kilometers an hour and spouted some religious nonsense and telling me that it was morally ethical to kill people. As someone who lives in a heavily religious part of the Midwest and the Bible Belt, this rang some fucking alarm bells. But look, pacifism is just not gonna work here. It isn't. It's just a fucking non-possibility. Not even because I inherently believe so with a DLC, I'm sure that's ultimately up for debate. But with this fucker? No. Not happening. Not a goddamn chance. So yeah, now it's time to do some quests. Honestly, I haven't played enough of this game to know which quests were mandatory, but I went in this cave in which my companion went, "You stupid bitch, we're not allowed to be in this fucking cave." I told her, "I respect your beliefs, but we need to search the cave." And following the conversation, I had the connotation that my character would look around hesitantly and try not to profane this area with her touch, which lasted about a grand total of 14 seconds before I committed what can only be considered sacrilege and spent an amount of time I'm not comfortable with and trying to find a fucking duffel bag. Why'd I suddenly become an ASMR channel? Anyways, look, for first playthrough I tried to do the RPG thing where I ignored quest markers, and if that meant running around a room for several minutes trying to find a fucking duffel bag, shit, I don't know dude, immersion I guess. Then I took out some Yao Guai. I did not get enough points to do drugs and kill a bear, and after 2 giant Yao Guai enacted their vengeance by turning me into their little bitch for 6 minutes, I took out the white legs and informed Daniel that I don't think I have any other options but to fight the white legs. He got really depressed and pleaded with me. "Can't you see that violence will only lead to more violence?" And I said, "Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but fuck it I guess, lol." Then he got really depressed and ran away. And now it's time to kill off the white legs by going downriver for a few years. Really, this part wasn't too eventful because Shadow Davey pretty much just locked on to any target within a 10-mile radius and instantly killed them. But here are 4 eventful-ish things that did happen during all this. Firstly, I got a special point because Shadow Davey decided to show mercy for once. Second, this piece of modern art that I don't even want to know the chances of happening. Thirdly, I found my caravan crew by sheer accident, as I think during my serial trip they got ass blasted to the other side of the map. Possibly literally. And finally, but by far the most importantly, Joshua just casually ascended into Jesus. Did any of this warrant mentioning? No. But this all happening back to back to back felt like such a weird drug trip I felt like I needed to mention it. Anyways, Jesus Graham himself is telling this dumbohead the glory of God, and really after that showcase earlier, I couldn't think of a single living person better to do it. I then killed this guy off on the basis that I don't think any person could just casually say no to Jesus in this scenario, and then I beat Honest Hearts. I got some cool armor out of it, which I sold most of, and then I was going to spend some more time decking up my character, but I eventually decided to just head to the next DLC, which in retrospect, there wasn't really any reason not to. Again, I know Dead Money is a DLC where you just start off with pretty much nothing. I have a companion who has a higher equipment load than even I do, so there wasn't really any reason not to. I guess for a video experience it would kind of trivialize the early part of his DLC, so I digress. I did die on the first dialogue prompt, which I thought was a nice touch, and I'd even say we're watching the same cutscene all over again just to experience that was pretty worth it. I always love these endings. I think ever since I finished Nier Automata, I'm legally obliged to see if an RPG will just casually kill me off if I'm a big enough dumbass. Which I'm admittedly glad I do because that happens a lot more than you would probably expect. Anyways, after my first encounter with an enemy that luckily can be killed by Shadow Davey, I can't help but notice a pretty big fucking mistake I made. I never healed off my radiation from the last DLC. And I literally just started this one. And because I don't have anything, I also don't have any Radaway either, so... fuck. I'm pretty much always at risk of dying from radiation sickness from here on out. I'd imagine this is where most people just go back to before the DLC started, deck out Shadow Davey with everything you could ever need, bring over a bunch of healing supplies and make sure your radiation sickness isn't always that critical. But no. I'm a man that is willing to admit their mistakes, and this is where I had a paragraph-long high school essay on the importance of mistakes and learning from them and what it means to be human, but I really think we should get to the DLC now. Daddy Elijah needs us to get to 3 people and then eventually get them to a specific location to open the Sierra Madre, the main set piece of this entire DLC. I don't know who was where or what I needed to do, so I eventually ran into Dog first, who can manage to rally towards the fountain we woke up in with a few skill checks. And really, I don't want to simplify this section down after the 15 years I spent explaining away the first dialogue, but really it's just that. Passing a few speech and skill checks and selecting the right dialogue option is more than enough to get the 3 characters towards the fountain with no issue. That being Dog/God, Christine, and Dean Domino. There's definitely a few gimmicks, sure, don't get me wrong. Getting to Dean Domino in particular makes Trap Cave look like a fucking joke, but really it's just running around the villa and convincing them to head towards the fountain before we get to the more important part. Setting up the Sierra Madre grand opening, where all 3 characters will have specific jobs, roles, and ways to ensure that they can actually do what they need to do. First off is God, who we need to get to a switching station. Once I get him there, he's pretty justifiably concerned with the possibility of his alternate personality, Dog, getting out. Well, at least I think it's an alternate personality. I'm not a psychologist, don't trust my evaluation of this. Point is, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about that too, so we have to feed him. This is by far the most straightforward role, as Shadow Davey can just send 2 of the trappers straight to the Shadow Realm, and all we need to feed him is only 2 slabs of meat, so there's not a whole lot of stress here. Christine, on the other hand, is immensely more difficult. Firstly, despite swapping the nukes to low yield to help with radiation, I'm rapidly approaching the threshold in which I just instantly die. So I have to try my damnedest to outrun Davey, which ranges from inconvenient to pretty much impossible. Secondly, all the toxic clouds nearby are just completely eating away my health, and this area pretty much forced me to spam stim packs the entire way through. And by the end, my reserves are pretty much non-existent. Once we get Christine to her position, we also have to go through the area and get 3 nearby parts to activate the electric box, which are hidden around in a few set locations. Other than this one I missed somehow. I really don't know how, it's pretty obvious. I managed to find them early on and could move on to the interior where, fortunately, with a little bit of exploring allowed us to activate the ventilation system and get rid of the toxic gas. That was what I was trying to say there. And then we got Christine to her post and we only have one more character we have to worry about. Dean Domino. Dean was unintentionally pretty easy because despite some of the toxicity still remaining, he can protect me from it, temporarily, and give me enough time to just run the fuck away. And once he's in his post, all I have to do is find 2 nearby security guards to protect him while he's doing his thing. With some parkour, I found both of these really easily. My video game spidey senses tingled and I could tell by the 2 fucking massive holes in the wall that I'm probably supposed to go in or around them. We then let Dean know it's safe for him to get into position, loot the area a bit more and run towards my location, the bell tower. There is a metric fuck ton of hunters on the way there, but ironically that's actually a good thing. The first 1, 2, or 3, yeah, a little problematic, but any more than that, the fat man just has such a long reload speed that I can just do the Fallout equivalent of a home run and make my way towards my position. While Davey was taking his sweet ass time killing them one by one, I Tom Brady'd my way straight to where I'm supposed to go. And then we can activate this and we can just run back towards the Sierra Madre and begin the next stage of this DLC. This is somewhat similar to the last stage, but with higher stakes. A little bit less enemies, toxic clouds, and traps though, so at least there's that. Before saving the first person though, I did gamble away for a few minutes because of my luck stat. Got a few stim packs, and fortunately due to a few rataways I found around the area, I was no longer at risk of fucking immediately dying. Well, at least from radiation. No matter what I do, that possibility always lingers above me no matter what. Anyways, for the first person I tried to rescue, Dog/God. Keyword on tried because I had really shitty positioning when I entered the room, and really my only option at this moment was for Dog to kill God. Then get the key off of him and disable all the valves before killing everyone. The thing I personally like about this segment is I don't just die and that's that. I get a pop-up telling me Christine and Dean die just before that to get that added element of fuck you to my inadequacy. Eventually though, I made it out unscathed, and then we can go to the second person. My narration isn't very good today. Dean fucking Domino. Dude's in quite the predicament with being behind several speakers that can turn my head into a funky looking chili, but luckily with the power of just running in a direction with enough conviction and the quick save button, this wasn't too much of an issue. Once I've reached the dude, I've been friendly enough with him to just go, "Hey dude, trust me, LOL," and that worked. Well, when I say I talked to the dude, I more so mean I'm talking to the door he was behind. I have to agree, it's a bit harder to have those long, thankful speeches when direct eye contact or body language is broken by the endless grey abyss of metal. But regardless, I'm glad the amount of companions I could spare is at least above 0 now, so that's neat. Next up, Christine. Or really not helping Christine, more so just her casually jump scaring me with the newfound capability of speech, and I go, "Hey, your voice sounds just like Vera." And she just casually runs up to the intercom and says a few words in one of the last segment. You know, I'm not gonna lie, with all the super high-tech sci-fi horseshit in this one area, and the fact that this entire casino was built for the sole purpose of simping over Vera, I'm surprised this is even close to a possibility. But I'm here to die over and over and over to nuclear hellfire and not digest the story, so who really cares? Actually, scratch that, I care. Let me tell you some more about the story. Sit down because this is the best part of Dead Money. A lot of this DLC is relating to the concept of letting go, both in story, characters, and gameplay. And that thematic is beautifully wrapped up in this room right here. There are approximately 37 gold bars in this room, all of which sell for like $1 billion fucking dollars, and after the final confrontation with Elijah, you're forced to run back to the elevator in which you came. And since you're not Minecraft Steve, getting to the end with all 37 gold bars is an impossibility. For most people. You see, by the basis of this being a Fallout game and an open world game with stats and RPG shenanigans, many players have casually found ways to get the 37 gold bars out of the Sierra Madre, and just completely cash out at a high-end vendor a la the Gunrunners. For me, I had my own plan. You see, if you go into the GEC, you can find out that Shadow Davey's carry limit is approximately fucking ridiculous. So my game plan was to find a way to get Shadow Davey into the room, pick up all the gold bars, give it to them, and make out like a bandit. This took me about an hour because I have a really fun tendency to just fall down one hole and stay there for all eternity, but eventually through trial and error I got them in here. Picked up the gold bars, went to Davey, and... oh no. Okay, so problem. Remember this right here? Yeah, I found out that was actually not because of some bug where they just straight up don't have a weight limit, but rather because the mini nukes each have a weight of 3 pounds in hardcore mode, where ammunition has weight. We aren't in hardcore mode. This just means somebody spent an hour wasting away their life and didn't get 37 gold bars. Delightful. I'm sure there's another really easy way to ensure that I could have gotten it here, but fuck it. I'm sure I can deal with the crushing poverty of only being able to sell 9 entire gold bars, and after that, I didn't really learn all that much of a valuable lesson in letting go. I finally got some fucking rat away though and got rid of my radiation poisoning, got a bunch of great weapons and ammo, and made my way towards the next DLC of Old World Blues. Old World Blues starts as all good pieces of fiction do, sitting through a 20-minute long philosophical debate with floating computers, all with varying degrees of insanity and quirks. This is the nicest way to phrase having a batshit insane Joe Rogan level debate with schizophrenic and mentally disturbed doctors who commit atrocities in the vague name of science. Do you know how a phone or a computer will shut down automatically if it reaches a certain temperature threshold to prevent the risk of permanent damage? I felt my brain subconsciously go through that exact process like 9 times during this DLC. And I don't even really mean that as like an insult. I just... what? What the fuck? I really couldn't even tell you what happened here. I got a gun that's a dog, I think. A few perks. Caps. And really that's about as much as my brain could capture before blue screening into an aneurysm. Walking outside, I couldn't help but notice something. A lot of the enemies here are like honest hearts. Well, not visually, but in the fact that there's so many goddamn melee enemies. And Robo-Scorpions. Oh my fuck, there are so many goddamn Robo-Scorpions. Every time I heard the word Robo-Scorpion, I couldn't help but smile, but also cry because they have those laser attacks and pincer attacks and they're fucking Robo-Scorpions and whoopsie-doopsie Team Rocket is blasting off again. Anyways, other than that, dogs and lobotomites running at me at Mach 10 and sending me closer and closer to my thermonuclear fate with every passing second. That was fun. I was able to get to the first testing station to complete my first quest. I thought it was funny because I clicked on a prompt to splice a robot and a lobotomite and it gave me a little pop-up that I created Abomination, although I made an even worse one many moons ago. Going into the actual test, our objective is pretty simple. We have to go through a standard-looking high school and obtain 3 student records. And man, these records are not appealing. There's a whole side story here, but really the most I'm getting out of this is that Richie likes balls, and that trying to pull off a horror game outplay on Shadow Davey where I constantly just close the door over and over again the second they open it is just not a possibility. Unfortunately though, I had a weird bug where the quest just didn't complete. Apparently it's a known bug for the quest and I did have to redo this part a few times to get it, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't make me feel like a complete idiot, but eventually managed to complete the tests, kill off Gabe who was a tanky little bastard, and actually I should probably mention swapping nukes right about now. Really I should have done it at the beginning of the video, but better late extremely late than never. So if you watched the first video you'd know that I did a lot of nuke swapping as the story progressed. Starting with Standard, then Big Kid, then Timed, Tiny Tots, etc. Well, in this version there is actually a dialogue tree where you can swap them out freely, and I've been using them all throughout this entire run. Primarily up to this point it's been Low Yield, Big Kid, and Tiny Tots, but I haven't actually used Timed or Standard yet, so we're going for those now, I guess. Anyways, Gabe perished and we found out that he actually has a core inside of him that is going to explode in 10 seconds. Apparently 10 seconds is like a minute. But once Big Dog goes big boom, we pick up his bark sample and god damn it, there's more Robo-Scorpions. At least I got a level up from this. I know I've been neglecting level ups for this video, but really most of the choices and levels went into what makes sense from a practical standpoint. I dumped a lot of points and traits into healing for Dead Money, a DLC with scarce resources. Science makes sense for a DLC like Old World Blues. I'd imagine speech would be a dump-worthy stat in a DLC with a premise such as Lonesome Road, and most of the perks usually just helped with survivability in one way or another. Anyways, after Gabe the dog borked his last bark, actually rest in peace little buddy, it was time to pick up my stealth suit, which is cute. Don't get me wrong, I love the stats, but she's just a character and all of her quips are hilarious in this playthrough. There was a small stealth sequence after getting the armor that I went through, luckily only once since that's all that's required, and after getting my armor waifu alongside me, and on me, it was time for more Robo-Scorpions. And the last piece of technology for me to acquire. We had to get to a satellite dish which was protected by a fair amount of robots, and you can bet your ass the second I got it, Robo-Scorpions were inbound on my position. And for this I actually had an ingenious strat. You see, this cool gun I got actually gets rid of these force fields. So if I get rid of the force field right here, I can actually just push Shadow Davey down it, hide on top of my satellite until the screen stopped shaking and nuclear explosion sounds weren't on repeat every 3 seconds, then fast travel back to the think tank to begin the last quest of his DLC, going straight to Dr. Mobius himself. Now I should state the obvious that I haven't really engaged in too much side quests or exploring in this video, but in this example I was literally told not to, so I can't really feel bad about going from point A to point B. Anyways, there's a trip to Dr. Mobius's Forbidden Zone Dome, a dome that is in the Forbidden Zone, a zone that is forbidden. Take a wild fucking guess what enemy awaited me in there. Is it A, B, or C? Take your time on this one, it's pretty hard if you haven't played the game before. Alright, ready? Answer? Fuck you. None of them. Big Robo-Scorpion. To quote my most recent ex, size does matter. And with a bigger target means there's more area to nuke. That's just science, I think. Anyways, with my depressed armor waifu, who kept getting depressed that I didn't have enough stim packs, we got to Dr. Mobius, who... well, he's objectively Dr. Mobius. A lot less threatening than you would probably expect, although probably about as drug addicted as you would expect.
Oh, I was probably tripping hard on Psycho when I sent that. Had to work myself up to it. Not usually violent, except when I am. Then, watch out!
Despite his generally acceptable attitude, I was tired of his fucking Robo-Scorpion comic antics and decided to just kill him real quick. Well, I didn't. I just hid in a room and kept Shadow Davey out of that room while nuclear hellfire was going on. But regardless, the end result was the same, and now I had to talk to my brain. My brain was pretty justifiably not fond of coming back with me for reasons I wholeheartedly support, but I would kind of prefer having it back in my head, and apparently just telling it I can shoot a gun really good is more than enough reason for it to come back to my body, which sounds about right in all honesty. Afterwards, we can get the rest of our body parts back in place, and we can convince Dr. Klein with the power of Caps Lock that my hollow skull contains the brain of Dr. Mobius, and that they need to fulfill their end of the bargain. And they did. We got our cool gun that takes us in and out of Big Empty, and then we can go ahead and finish up Old World Blues. The last DLC up on the chopping block is Lonesome Road. I did buy a few things beforehand, but it was mostly just stim packs and ammunition. Although fortunately due to a few perks we unlocked, we didn't have to worry about buying Radaway or Rad-X anymore, which is fantastic. And then we can go ahead and start the DLC. We first have to go through the Hopeville Silo Bunker and... oh god, no. No, Eddie, you poor specimen, run the fuck away. You're free, don't come with me, don't, god damn it. Yeah, if you saw the last video, you would know that Eddie didn't have a good time with us. Eddie getting knocked unconscious was a rather fun and frequent thematic throughout that entire video. Although this isn't the Mojave iteration of Eddie, it is still Eddie, and I can't help but feel fucking depressed that I need to bring them along for this journey. Not in the sense that I don't want them here, trust me I do, Eddie's in my top 3 companions, but god damn it, Eddie is unconscious. Stepping out of the silo, Courier 6/Ulysses starts talking to us through Eddie, and he is definitely a character. He's a little bit too vague and edgy for my liking, but I really love the voice, so hell, sure thing Ulysses, tell me where I gotta go. Well, apparently where we're supposed to go first is Hopeville, which is a fitting name for an experience such as this one. Also, I still have the stealth suit on. Look, ready, steady, fighty is probably going into my quote regularly without any context list. You can't really blame me on this one. Anyways, the main objective of Hopeville is to get this detonator to get rid of the warheads blocking your path, which although is extremely video gamey and I struggle to wrap my head around the logic of this being an item, was still kind of fun because ultimately I'm shooting a warhead until it goes boom, and that's always a fun time. I did actually explore the area a bit more just due to how much high-level loot there is, and I found some pretty neat stuff all things considered. By this point in the game, I'm definitely not struggling in the weapons department, but it's always good to have a diverse roster of weaponry. After roughly about half an hour of exploring the town, I pushed forward with the main quest and got to the collapsed overpass tunnel. The first 2 things I saw were Deathclaw casually walking away from us and Eddie going on one of his 70 recordings in hell. He's cute. I like him. Eddie's unconscious. There's also a new enemy here other than the Deathclaws, which are, well, already not ideal. Tunnelers. Tunnelers, rather predictably, tunnel. On top of their ability to pop out and get the drop on me if I'm not prepared, they're also melee enemies, which is not a good mixture of capabilities for me. I ultimately just had to run to the exit and hope that Davey attacked random enemies enough that I could just get the fuck out of the cave ASAP. Which worked, and immediately afterwards Ulysses told me, oh yeah, these things will probably be in the Mojave within the next few years, which makes me very, very anxious for the next Obsidian Fallout game. After this conversation, I did hit level 25 and dumped the rest of my points to get speech up to 100, because this being a Fallout game means there's a near 100% chance that the final encounter of the game could be skipped or alleviated with a speech skill of 100. Pushing forward, there are a bunch of Deathclaws and generally unpleasant marked men. This Deathclaw in particular just being a real bastard because I initially thought this boy was the one over here that I didn't kill, but he actually just spawns in the second you get past a certain threshold in the crashed vehicle, which is just rude. And then we just casually launched a missile, because the game told us to. That's meta. Anyways, in this cutscene, Shadow Davey dissolved straight into my body, and after the missile landed to a nearby location and caused a massive explosion, my stealth suit casually asked me nonchalantly,
"Do you like me?"
And really, this is why the stealth suit is my choice for the best waifu in any video game. I don't think I've ever unironically used the term waifu to describe a character, but fuck it. Good job, stealth suit. I love you. Immediately after this is an elevator segment with a bunch of Michael Bay explosions, and for this I had to swap out Shadow Davey's nukes to low yield because fuck me, this is not an ideal sequence for this playthrough. Even with the nukes going all the way to low yield, I had to use over 30 stim packs and most of my food reserves for this one elevator ride alone. And really, this just makes me glad I explored Hopeville earlier because I don't think this would be possible without dozens on dozens on dozens of healing items. Afterwards though, we can ascend the missile silo, then ascend the Sunstone Tower, and then finally make it back to the surface. Ulysses contacted us through Eddie yet again, and this is where we're starting to make some real progress on the story. I swapped Shadow Davey's nukes back to Big Kid yet again once we made it out of the cave, and after a small encampment of marked men was yet another cave full of tunnelers, and I'm starting to get really upset with their continued existence. At least I found this cool bedroll earlier, and that really helped me out with my radiation poisoning and health. Once we made it out of yet another tower connected to a cave, Eddie was stolen from us. And at this point, this got fucking personal. You can dump all this exposition and philosophical bullshit on me and I won't care. But steal Eddie? You just crossed the wrong courier, you dumb fucking bitch. I started killing everything in my path. Well, excluding Roar, who just completely fucked me up. But after carving a bloody warpath of thermonuclear destruction, I got Eddie back, and it was time for the last confrontation of this series. Remember how I said it was probably a good idea to dump a bunch of stats into speech because this is a climactic showdown at the end of a Fallout game? Well, who would have guessed I was right. And although I did play through this a few times to see all the possibilities, including teaming up with Ulysses, but here's the thing. This dude stole Eddie from me, frequently called it a tool, and questioned how I thought of him. And for that, the save I went for video continuity, fuck you Ulysses, perish. After his death though, we had a big issue though. There's still a big fuck off missile here and we need to get rid of it. Now we have a few options. Fire it at the NCR, fire it at the Legion, fire it at both, or sacrifice Eddie to fire it at neither. Now I think choosing the former option, after all the times he became unconscious, is not just a moral low ground, it's the moral ravine. So I chose the NCR option, not because of the last playthrough, but because the dialogue option was the most casual. I never liked the NCR anyways, it is such a great response to choosing which faction I want to disintegrate the innocent peoples of into a pile of radioactive cinders fit only to fade away into the dust of the Mojave. And with that, we did it, Patrick. We saved the city. We got the morally good ending where Eddie isn't knocked unconscious for once, and we beat all of the Fallout New Vegas DLC with this complete failure of a companion. Just a reminder before the video ends, if you like cock and ball torture, you can indeed install this companion with a video link at the top of the description or clicking the annotation in the top right. It's a pretty easy install, all things considered, and I'd love to see people use the companion and generally have what can only be considered a quote, fun time, end quote. As always, thank you to my patrons who support these videos. If you don't know, we're doing game nights now if you're a patron or a Twitch subscriber, and I'm hoping they're pretty fun. And I guess for once I'll also show out my Twitch and Discord. As always, both are in the description. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, feel free to fucking air conditioner. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, feel free to press buttons. I can't tell you which buttons, that's ultimately up for you to decide. And as always,
mean robot bugs, mean robot bugs.